iPhone 15 Pro Max every single day for a couple of weeks now, and I have to say I haven't really noticed any big differences from my previous iPhone 14 Pro Max. Yes, we have the action button, the USB-C port, the overall design feels a little bit better in the hand because the edges are more rounded, and that 5x zoom is pretty sweet, but from day to day it's probably just not worth the upgrade. It's kind of strange because all of the changes Apple made to the iPhone 15 Pro Max is good and is useful, but these changes are so small that any average person using their iPhone from day to day probably won't notice a huge difference compared to the 15 Pro Max and the 14 Pro Max. Of course, it does depend what function you set the action button for, and mine is currently to turn on my flashlight, but there are 8 other options you can set it to. You can set the action button to go into focus mode, silent mode, go straight to your camera, go to voice memos, magnifier if you have bad eyesight, use the shortcuts app, use an accessibility feature, or just turn off all of the actions altogether. I've personally used the flashlight, shortcuts, and camera option the most with the action button, and if you do want to get the most out of the action button, then just set it to whatever app you use most frequently. For example, if you're somebody that always is using the Notes app on your phone, kind of like myself, then you can set the action button through the Shortcuts app to open up a new note every single time you press that button. Obviously, the action button in the 15 Pro and Pro Max does allow us to do way more than that old mute switch, and I am really happy that Apple decided to give us this. But I will say it's not going to be a feature that makes me want to go out and buy a new iPhone 15 Pro Max if I already have the iPhone 14 Pro Max. Now, one of the most talked about things in these new iPhones is the USB-C port. It seems like most people are fine with the USB-C port, and I actually love it because I can charge up this phone with my other USB-C cables from my MacBook or iPad. Plus, if I'm traveling, I don't need to bring an extra charging cord for every single device, and I can just bring a few USB-C chargers for all of my different devices. On the other side of that though, I could see how some people would be disappointed about the USB-C port if they have a ton of Apple Lightning cables that they saved up throughout the years, and if they buy one of the new iPhone 15 models, then they're obviously not going to be able to use their Apple Lightning cables anymore. I think the pros of USB-C does outweigh the cons because more and more devices are switching over to this USB-C port, and it's just going to continue to get more and more popular, especially with the European Union regulations making it required for all phones sold there to have a USB-C port. And that's actually probably one of the main reasons why Apple switched over to this USB-C port. Not only that, but in the Pro models, USB-C also dramatically increases the transferring speeds between video and other files. Unfortunately, you will have to buy this cable separately as the one in the packaging of the new iPhone 15s does not have the fast transferring speeds and does not support USB 3. I personally haven't made use of the faster transferring speeds because I film all of my content on my Sony A7 IV, but if I did use my iPhone for content creation, I would absolutely love having these faster speeds. I feel like most people that are more advanced with videography and photography already have a camera of their own, so they're probably not going to be using their iPhone. And I'm sure everyday people that buy the 15 Pro and Pro Max probably are not going to go out of their way and buy a supported USB 3 cable unless they are specifically getting this phone for content creation. Switching the subject here, over the last few weeks, I have grown to love the updated design of the iPhone 15 Pro Max. The edges are now slightly rounded and they're not near as sharp as the edges on the 14 Pro Max, and the phone just feels way better to hold in the hand because of that. But of course, this doesn't matter too much because most people are going to be using this phone with a case anyways. The titanium edges are definitely a lot less shiny than the stainless steel edges on the 14 Pro and Pro Max, and I actually like the titanium a lot better because even though it still attracts smudges, it doesn't attract smudges near as bad as that older stainless steel. Overall, I think this natural titanium color is probably one of my favorites ever in an iPhone, because it has a little bit of shine to it, but it's not too much. The other colors do look pretty good as well, and those include the blue titanium, white titanium, and black titanium. But after visiting the Apple Store a couple of different times, I looked at all of the colors, and I do think that the natural titanium looks the best. In terms of the OLED display here, everything is the exact same on the 15 Pro Max as it was on the 14 Pro Max, and the only slight difference that we have here is slightly smaller bezels, which I guess is more of a design change because the screen is still the exact same size and the sides of the phone are just a little bit slimmer, making the bezels smaller. I think the phone does look a little bit better with these small bezels, because even though the screen is the same size, it actually looks bigger because the bezels are a lot smaller and it kind of jumps out at you, versus with the iPhone 14 Pro Max, I didn't really feel that quite as much. In terms of the new internals, the iPhone 15 Pro and Pro Max has the new A17 Pro chip, and I have noticed a slight difference with this phone compared to my iPhone 14 Pro Max in terms of the overall speeds from day to day. I honestly think most people that are upgrading from the 14 Pro Max probably won't see much of a difference in the overall speed unless they really look out for it and test it out. But if you do have an iPhone 13 or older, you will see a much bigger difference in the overall speeds in your day-to-day use. The thing that makes the A17 Pro chip more unique is that it is the first 3nm chip in an iPhone. This means that it can pack in 19 billion transistors, which allows the chip to have a 10% faster CPU and a 20% faster GPU. Another thing that's new in this chip is the hardware that allows ray tracing, and ray tracing pretty much just allows the lighting in different games to be a little bit more realistic. I personally hardly ever play games on my iPhone, so I don't really care about ray tracing that much, but I am happy that Apple is continuously increasing their chips to be the best they can possibly be. Now, if you're a content creator and you want to upgrade to the iPhone 15 Pro or Pro Max, or you just want to know the camera improvements, listen up, because here's what you need to know. The biggest update to the camera is the new 5x telephoto lens in the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I have tested this 5x zoom out multiple times with photos and videos, and I have enjoyed it a lot because it allows you to get so much closer to the object that you're shooting with a pretty clear image. You can see an example on the screen right here that I took up in Vail, Colorado, with the first picture being taken at the 1x zoom, the second picture at the 2x zoom, and then this last picture at the 5x zoom, which really allows us to zoom in much further and capture the side of this building. And you can see the same thing right here with these images that I took of the side of this mountain, and I think you get the point as to why everyone loves this 5x zoom feature so much. I have already used it a ton in my everyday life to capture some good memories. The main camera is a little bit better on the 15 Pro Max when shooting in the 24 megapixel mode, but if the phone is in 12 megapixel mode, then it is the exact same as the previous 14 Pro Max. And the 14 Pro Max actually does have a slightly better 3x zoom because it has a dedicated telephoto for it, even though the 15 Pro Max has that better 5x zoom. And in low light situations, I would say the same exact thing, with the 24 megapixels obviously being better than the 12 megapixels in the 14 Pro Max. If you're a videographer, you can shoot in a log profile format on the 15 Pro and Pro Max if you want to color grade your footage afterwards. I think this is incredible because if you are a videographer and you need all of your videos from your different cameras and phones to be the same on a specific project, then you can color grade your footage to make it more similar. Overall, the iPhone 14 Pro Max and 15 Pro Max both shoot incredible photos and videos, with the 15 Pro Max just being a little bit more advanced because it can shoot in that log color profile and it has that 5x zoom. After using this phone every single day for a few weeks, I have really enjoyed it, but there hasn't been many differences from the 15 Pro Max and my older 14 Pro Max. But if you have an iPhone 13 or older, you will see a much bigger difference in the overall speed and efficiency of the phone, so an upgrade would be much more worth it. The majority of people probably won't even make use of all the features that the iPhone 15 Pro Max has to offer, but if you are a content creator, you want to film in the log color profiles, you want to have that external drive with the USB-C so you can film in 4K 60 frames per second, and you want to have the faster transferring speeds, then I could see how upgrading would be worth it for you. If you guys want to check out my unboxing of the iPhone 15 Pro Max in natural titanium, you can watch the video right here. And as always, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. That being said, thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.